I've always had a passion for teaching and just sharing knowledge with other people. I think it's really beautiful to be able to take what you know and give that to someone else, sort of like a gift. So I started teaching and doing a lot of community work when I was in middle school and high school, student teaching in high school and things like that, particularly for music in my senior year. The summer before my senior year, I was made aware of this program with WIESCO, Wisconsin International Scientific Cultural Organization. And it's basically a language and cultural exchange program where I get to go and teach these students about music while also helping them um, better their English skills. So we speak entirely in English at the camp. And so through that, I get to not only help them with bettering their English abilities, but get to teach them music, as that's something that before at the camp was not entirely offered, and also in their school system is not particularly emphasized. So it was really unique to be able to share the arts with them in that way. In this classroom setting, it was very different and unique for them. They were a little timid because it wasn't something they were used to doing. But I got to kind of break them out of their shell and be like, no, yes, you can learn this way. So it was really exciting. The structure of the camp is very similar to our classroom design here in the US, but for them, it's very different. A lot of times their classroom is just teachers teaching up at the front and everyone's sitting and listening, and there's not a ton of interaction with each other, necessarily with the teacher. And so I really made an emphasis to have us interact with each other and them doing group activities and things like that, which was also something we had to work through because they were like, oh, we can like talk during class. And so it's super exciting. And so with music, I try to cover as many of the basics in my mind for them, just because this was something they never get to kind of explore. So we talked a lot about, with all of our ages, some of the fundamentals that you learn here in the US. So things like rhythm and melody. Time and tempo. We did a lot of activities where we were playing games and making songs. We also did some sort of poetic activities so we could experiment with songwriting. Learning how to rhyme in a language that's not your first language is something that was super intimidating to them, but we made some really cool songs. We also did like a little bit of Western music history review and kind of seeing how we could connect that to things they had learned in their history classes, as well as modern history, American artists, and what's popular here in the US right now and what's popular for them. So we got to kind of just explore music in a really general sense, but also some specific things that connected my culture to theirs. Really, when I went, especially the first year I went as a full-time teacher, I really wasn't that much older than a lot of the students. So it was super interesting to get to connect with them in that way. Of course, teaching here, you understand that everyone comes from such different backgrounds, but then there's this layer, of course, last year when I attended the camp in the midst of the Ukrainian war, which is of course still going on, these students are going through such a unique experience. Of course, here in the US, when you're teaching, you know that every student has their struggles at home and things like that. Everyone's coming with different baggage or something like that that's going to affect the way they learn. But then having these students in this very active and heavy sort of impairment on how involved they want to be, what do they even want to be here learning, things like that. So just getting to know these students on an individual level and how aside from teaching music, how I can let this be an outlet for them to feel safe, for them to express themselves in this very chaotic and emotional and stressful time for them. And so it was so special to get to talk to these students, you know, some of them who hadn't seen their parents in forever, you know, who aren't getting to see their family, who are staying with strangers that had opened up their homes, and just sometimes having to take a step back from my lessons and being like, okay, sometimes the goal is not, okay, are we mastering this concept of rhythm or things like that? But is the student feeling comfortable and fulfilled and creative and just content in being here with me, the stranger who they've never met, and being able to connect in that way? It was really unique to be able to hear each basically individual person's story, because we all have a story. Everyone comes from such a different background, but it was so different hearing these stories in light of the climate, and it made me feel so many emotions that I had never felt before. I was so grateful for a lot of the ways that I've been brought up. I mean, being able to go through middle school and high school without having to worry about a war and things like that is just, I feel like something that a lot of people may take for granted. It made me just so much more aware of being able to live my life every day with ease, and that a lot of people, especially right now, don't get that. There was a particular instance where we were doing a melodrama, and a lot of old melodramas, the audience would like throw popcorn at the villain. And, we talked about like, oh, this is something we could do with the kids. And a lot of the kids were like, yeah, but why would we waste all that food? And it was like, whoa, something that was so fun and lighthearted to us is so serious. And they were right. We were like, yeah, we shouldn't do that. So it was very unique to come back with all of that. Of course, you grow up and you know that there's always someone who has a different story than you, a different path that they've been on. But being able to really talk with someone and hear their story, have them tell that to you, is just so impactful. And you really live with that when there are these people that you can put faces to. I definitely think that music helped a lot. Growing up, my own kind of musical look has always been that music is sort of this universal language. I mean, music is throughout all cultures. Everyone connects with music in some way. And so it really was, for me anyway, of course I'm biased because music is my thing, but it's this bridge where even if we can't directly communicate through language, we get to have this language that we can communicate to because music is so emotional and real and it is us. I definitely use that to my advantage. We also did a lot of physicality with the music, and that really helped because we can just move and we don't have to talk if that's not what we're wanting to, that's not what the students were wanting to do that day. So we did a lot of like dancing and yoga and just things to get them moving. A lot of the times, especially with some of my older students, there's this level of like embarrassment, like, oh, well, I don't want to speak and it not be correct or something like that. And I was like, let's just be silly and get out of our shells kind of thing. Because of course I was nervous too. What if I, as someone who's younger and learning about education, what if I become embarrassed? So kind of getting us on this level of comfortability with each other, and music just really helped with that. I mean, even though there were a good few students who were kind of unsure with their language, I mean, they wrote these beautiful pieces that were super emotional, and we would put a lot of the poetry they wrote to song, and that really developed into these big numbers. We had someone write a whole sea shanty just because they got the word water in this like improv exercise. And it's really beautiful how not only music, but just the arts in general can really bring these students out of their shell because it's something everyone can relate to regardless of language. I think storytelling is of the utmost importance when it comes to music because that's what music is. It is storytelling. Almost every piece you hear is conveying some sort of emotion or experience that someone has had, and that's throughout history. Music started as this form of communication for us to be able to tell one thing. We're just kind of adding some elements to it. So it's very important to be able to understand that level of music, not only as like something that's very beautiful to listen to, but the deep emotional impact it has on not only the person writing it or playing it or singing it, but the person that's listening to it and how that connects us. I think something that's really important is just being able to connect with other people. I mean, the world is so big, and I think sometimes we can forget that, especially when you get caught up in school or work. Being able to connect with these people across the world that I otherwise never would have gotten to interact with has just been so special and has given me, it's been such a gift to be able to talk to them and learn about their culture and do this exchange. I feel like a lot of times they taught me more than I taught them, just because when you really strip down people and you don't have necessarily that clear form of speech, the things you can create and the ways you can communicate outside of that are really special.